So Thandi, can you share with us how Shikamoto came to be and why in this place and why in this school?
Yes.
Thank you.
So it came from the specific ECD center that we're at, which is supported and run by an organization called KILRU.
What's that?
ECD is Early Childhood Development.
Okay.
So as you can see, we're in a school setting. It's a playgroup, so it's for children aged 1, 2 years old to about 4, 5 years old. And they didn't have access to the internet. They didn't have Wi-Fi network or anything like that. And we worked through a different donor with the KILRU organization. So a lot of the work that we do as MMA is focused around access to information, access to the internet, and the work around internet as a facilitative right, that kind of thing.
That's gonna be a funny video.
So we got involved, we started working with KILRU as an organization, and they were focused on ECD content in terms of training materials, in terms of educative content for parents, and that sort of thing for ECD centers. So out of those conversations and with the work that we're doing on access to the internet and access to information, and started exploring and moving around in circles that we're looking at community networks, the idea of having the mesh network off the grid that gave people access to the information that they needed sort of organically developed. So that's how we set up Shikamoto, with the original intention to have off-the-grid communication for the parents whose children were at the school, as well as access to parenting training modules and parenting content. So the first instance of Shikamoto had a basic WordPress site as well as a chat application, and so the chat application, WordPress site, and then training content. And we had 2 separate 6-week courses for parents run on Shikamoto. So the parents would be in range of the network and be able to access the training material. They would go home, run certain activities with their children, and through the chat application send through the results of the activity. So whether it was photographs or results of what they were doing, so they communicated over the network without that charging them anything. After that was run, it turned into more of a need of having access to online databases in terms of student information and financial statements.
As you say.
Going into what was originally meant for a sort of training module and education content, specifically for the parents of the students at the ECD Center, there were sort of organic needs that developed for the center itself. Everything, as you can see, some of the information is still sitting on manual paper, database capturing. That's now been transferred onto an online platform that's on Shikamoto. So it's an off-the-grid system that they're using without having to access the internet to use that. So that's now being developed, and the guys are being trained on using that. The other thing that then came into the picture was, on the one side of the school, about 1 kilometer in that direction, is a site of the school, a separate site. It's a small creche that is for a separate part of the community, but also under the KILRU umbrella of early childhood development centers. So what we were able to do is then through Shikamoto and the range and the nodes that were set up, we were able to reach that site, that second site of the creche. They were then able to speak to each other and use the same database, being able to access that off the Shikamoto system.
Okay. So, do you have any results that you can share with us based on this experience? I mean, has it been successful? What things have gone right? What things you would have liked to go different way?
So I think one of the mistakes that we made in the beginning, not mistake, but definitely a learning experience, was the fact that we worked with a sort of administrative part of the school and a donor, and not necessarily with the community from the very beginning. So it definitely came as a sort of a more practical institutional need rather than your typical community network driven approach. So it came from a bit of a top-down perspective where through the school we tried to reach the community because we thought that we understood the need, which was somewhat different to what we thought in the very beginning. So I think that's extended the process for quite a while, because it's been quite a journey with the more of the community. But with this, I think the Shikamoto system specifically is more to do with specific sites and the specific organization's needs in terms of an off-the-grid network. So we're trying to focus the content needs to where the site is implemented. So I guess what a different approach would be when we're trying to replicate the system or offering it to other communities would be to do a lot more research beforehand into who needs what in terms of the system, instead of implementing the hardware and going, okay, now that we have the hardware, what do you need? I think that's a very all over the place approach. But also I guess that unless you have the hardware and unless you play with the system, you also don't know what it can do. So I think that's a very fine balance between implementing the hardware and the infrastructure and actually deciding what kind of content or what kind of communication you want from a network like a off-the-grid mesh network.
Okay. What good things have you gotten out of this experience?
I think, for the system itself, it's gone from a very basic, what we, I guess, thought was quite a siloed approach in exploring community networks. We've grown a lot in the community network field and the networking of community networks. I think that we didn't realize what incredible community specifically that was. We were trying to figure things out on our own, and through this experience we've managed to find a lot of people that were also developing community networks and exploring with the same kind of problems that we had, the same kind of infrastructural problems and infrastructural needs that we had. So I think a good thing is being able to see the movement of community networks take off, and that's really exciting to be part of, especially in a country like South Africa. And another lesson, I suppose, is that don't expect it to be easy. Take it as a learning experience. I don't think you don't have the solutions yourself. But if you're at a position where you're able to offer some of the solutions, you can then work with people who have the need and come up with that. So, I mean, the positive experience also is that we now have an ECD center that previously wasn't online and didn't have a lot of digital literacy training, and we've worked with some of the guys that are involved in the community that volunteer at the center. They've been trained up with a lot of the infrastructural stuff. So one of the things that I haven't mentioned was that the approach that we took was to try and it's about the community ownership of the system. So training the guys who will be running this, training the guys who will be implementing it to maintain the system itself. So we're still in that space. We haven't. I wouldn't say we finished that. It's not a self-sustaining unit. We're still coming in to do maintenance. We're still training and working with the guys to get to a point where they can do it themselves. But that's a very positive result, I think. Just to get digital literacy and online literacy developed, or any progress towards that in any community as well.
How did you get to know your partners here?
So as I mentioned before, one of the initiators of the concept was an organization called Kalru, and they're the ECD center. So they already had an existing relationship with this specific site and the specific school, as well as the second site where the creche is. So we didn't come directly to Thandi. That's the name of the actual school that we're at now. So we didn't come directly. We were introduced and networked by Kalru, who were the sort of middleman in this process. So it was a bit of an interesting dynamic. I don't think it was your usual sort of setup where it was just one or two different players that connected and worked together. We had a third party that introduced us, because I guess they saw the need from either side. They saw what we were doing and they thought it would be a good partnership. So we were introduced to Maria and Toboho and the crew, the admin crew here, and we started working with them through that introduction.
Okay, and what have they? You had an idea of what you wanted to do together with your partner, and what about the center? What were they looking for in this?
So I think where that came from was.
No.
I think the idea came from something that had already been thought about between Kalru and the centre. They were trying to find a solution. They had the content, but they were trying to find a digital solution to communicate that content to the parents who didn't have a lot of access. I think there's a whole move to try and also be a bit more environmentally friendly, if I can be a bit cliche about that, around printing, and I mean there are obviously big costs around paper and hard copy material. So I think that they were already thinking about digital solutions, but they just didn't know how to go about doing that. And that was when we came in with the sort of, we were already at the time exploring the community network options, but we didn't have any partners, or I guess it was, also that thing where we thought we had a solution, but we knew that there was a need, but we hadn't identified a specific need for a specific area yet. So it was an experiment. It's been a very interesting experiment, and the more we talk about the Shikamoto story, I suppose, and the more we talk about what we've learned and how we've implemented things, we've already started speaking to other organizations who are very interested in buying the infrastructure or helping or getting us to facilitate the setting up of the infrastructure and running the system on their own. So we're doing a lot of research and a lot of development on getting the infrastructure and the network into something nice and easy to move around and easy to set up, and far more user friendly, because I think it was very sort of developer heavy in terms of setting up the software on the routers and the software on the Raspberry Pis. So we've been working on that so that it's a far easier sort of process, and I think we've identified 2 or 3 other organizations who, when we're ready with the hardware side of it, they want to roll it out in their communities, and that will be a far more community-run, community-owned system. We'll have a lot less of a role to play in those sort of implementations.